morning and welcome back, and today I'm going to continue with the exploration of deep water mathematics, which quite frankly it's very vast, and I think we're just beginning to touch the tip of the iceberg. I want to particularly talk about the nature of the physical from a mathematical perspective, and if you recall, what I'm referring to is based on a few weeks ago we had begun to look at some patterns that occur regardless of organization, regardless of area, and in these patterns there's similar phases of development that occur through time, and these phases go through something called the physical, the vital, and the mental. And so that led us to the observation that there is perhaps an implicit order in time. And then when we step back from that and we ask, why is it that the system has this implicit order in time? What does it tell us about the system? We arrived at something, we arrived at the notion that there's an implicit order in space, and that every point in space is characterized by four implicit equations, if you will. And so we derived initially this four equations that describe the nature of the point, and these very broadly were an equation for omnipresence, an equation for omnipotence, an equation for omniscience, and an equation for omniloving. And then what we went on to say is that we looked at, alright, so that's the nature of the point, but as things play out in the system in which we live in, then what does that more practically look like? And then we derived four sets. So a set for omnipresence, a set for omnipotence, a set for omniscience, a set for omniloving that had a number of characteristics related to it, related to each of these key implicit characteristics in a point. And that kind of gave us a notion of the play of forces that sets up the architecture of organizations. And then subsequently from that, what we did was that we looked at, I suggested the hypothesis that every single organization is unique. And so we derived an equation, a couple of equations for the uniqueness of the organization. We call them the equation of a signature, and then we derived an equation for the emergence of a signature, and then we derived some equations for culture that are related to the uniqueness or the equations of signature. And today I want to state the hypothesis, or suggest the hypothesis, that this set or this system that we are saying is true of every point, and the architecture, the play of forces, the architecture of organizations, the uniqueness, that's going to give us some insight into what we see very practically about the physical, the vital, the mental, and the state of integration that's beyond them. And in particular, I want today to focus on the physical. So just summarize the sets of equations that define the physical, if you will, and subsequently I'll also do the same with the sets of equations that define the vital, the mental, and the state of integration. So if we were to think about the physical, then what we're saying is that there are certainly three levels of equations that we must consider that give us insight into the nature of the physical. And so I would call those meta level 1, meta level 2, meta level 3, where obviously this is from this point of view where we have the physical here. There's a meta level that gives us insight into the nature of the physical. There's a meta level 2 that gives us further insight into the nature of physical. There's a meta level 3 that gives us even further insight into the nature of the physical. And so I would describe the physical as comprising of these equations at the meta level 3. So starting here at the nature of the point, where we have something called omnipresence, which we define as an action that takes place across any time-space causal wedge from 0 to n, such that there's this presence that uses any opportunity to ensure the progress from physical leading to vital leading, from vital leading to mental leading. But then I would further add or enhance this equation that we came up with earlier to say that it's not only this, but there's also the fact that the physical provides a container, if you will, or allows the action or the embodiment of omnipower, omniscience, and omniloving. So to me, this is that meta level 3 that's behind everything. So the nature of the point, where we have things such that there's presence that always makes a shift from physical leading to vital leading, or vital leading to mental leading, and further that provides the occasion or the embodiment or the container or the environment for the action of these other 3 deep characteristics. Second, I would say that at a meta level 2, what we have is that we had derived 4 sets, but being very specific, I would say that the physical is related to this set of omnipresence, which we had said was the set of elements such as service, perfection, diligence, perseverance, sincerity, and so on. And then at the immediate meta level 1, we had a signature, which I'd say is the signature of P, the physical. So earlier we had derived a general signature, but I'll just call this the signature of P, which is equal to some primary element X with a relative weight A plus a secondary element Y with a relative weight B, and the secondary element Y may repeat itself from 0 to n times, and such that we have X, which is an element from the set of omnipresence only, and we have Y that can be an element from any of the sets of omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, omniloving, and we have A and B that are integers such that A is greater than B, and further this whole signature is modulated by pi, and that gives us the signature of P, or the influence on the physical at the first meta level. So when we think about the physical, that is that thing that we see before us, the thing that our senses make us aware of, that thing that has yesterday embedded in today, or that defines a seed from which everything arises, so it maintains the status quo. It's a container of stability, if you will, in which everything else arises. Then the physical can be thought of as having behind it this action that's described by these 3 meta levels. So pictorially, I would say that if we think about the physical as this level with its many different possibilities, behind it there's the action of this meta level 1, meta level 2, and this meta level 3, again 3 being this point that acts everywhere, 2 being a description of the play of force that further defines the physical, 3 being that equation of uniqueness. And so we have this kind of action that is described by this quote-unquote equation for the physical.